So in this video, we are going to talk about the Vedic civilization. We'll start the video with the sources of information, that how do we get to know about this Vedic civilization. And then this Vedic civilization is categorized into two periods. First is early Vedic civilization and the second is later Vedic civilization. We will see both of this separately, that how was social life, economic life, religious life in early Vedic civilization and how was all this in later Vedic civilization. So getting started with the sources of information. The sources are divided into two parts. First are the literary sources, and second are the archaeological sources. So, in the literary sources, one of the prime source is the Vedas. Now, first of all, let us know that what do we mean by the term Vedas. The term Veda word comes from a Sanskrit word that is Vid. And what is the meaning of this Sanskrit word? This is to know. So, the Veda means knowledge. The literal meaning of Veda is knowledge. Now we have four types of Ved: the Rig Ved, the Sam Ved, the Yajur Ved, and the Athar Ved. And let me tell you that this Rig Ved Samhita was compiled in early Vedic period, and all these three Ved, Sam Ved, Yajur Ved, Athar Ved, were compiled in the later Vedic civilization. So that is why the early Vedic period is also known as Rig Vedic period, or also known as Rig Vedic civilization. Apart from the Vedas, we have other literary sources like the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, which are also associated with Vedas. Apart from that, we have the Ashtadhyayi of Panini, the Srot Sutra, the Grih Sutra, the Puranas, the Smritis, and these two epics, which I think most of you have heard of, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These were the literary sources to get to know about the Vedic civilization. Now coming to the archaeological sources, first among all are the Iron Age artifacts. We all know that iron was discovered in India around 1000 BC. So as discovered from the excavation, the Iron Age seems to have begun in India around 1000 BC, and there was an improvement in arts and craft using iron, and because of the uses of iron, trade and commerce prospered. Many types of weapons now can be produced using irons. So the first iron tools was discovered in Karnataka are of around 1000 BC. So we can say that the iron tools and iron weapons of that period can also be used as an archaeological sources. Now apart from that, we have a different kind of pottery, which is a distinct Vedic age pottery. You can say the Rig Vedic Aryans used greyware and painted greyware pottery. You can see on the screen the image resembling the Vedic age pottery. Pottery was discovered in the areas of modern Punjab and Haryana, the painted greyware pottery of the later Vedic Aryans. So these pottery were so crucial in discriminating between Harappan civilization and the Vedic civilization, because only after discovering the pottery we came to that conclusion that both these civilizations are not the same. They are distinctive, they are different in nature. Now coming to the early Vedic period, so we will talk about the social life. First of all, we will have a look on the family and housing. The family was very simple but patriarchal. So father used to be the head of joint family, and father was often called as Giripati. Giri means the home and Giripati means the head of home. Now coming to the women, so women were given the same position as men. So the society was pretty much egalitarian, and they could take part in all the rituals. They were also educated, and to that extent that some of women also became rishis like Apala, Goshala and Vishwara were famous female rishis. Now the food habits, the Rigvedic Aryans ate very simple but nourishing food. On special religious occasions, they used to drink the Somarasa, and this Somarasa is considered equivalent to elixir, or what we call it in Hindi as Amrit. Now coming to the dressing style, so the dressing style of Aryans was completely made up of cotton, wool and silk, unlike the Harappan civilization where they were so much dependent on the cotton. Now the most important social feature, that is the Varna system. The society was categorized into four groups, classifying people according to their occupations. These four groups were Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. The job of Brahmana was to teach Vedas, job of Brahmana was to perform the sacrifices. Now the Kshatriyas were assigned with the job of administration, the Vaishya were assigned with the job of agriculture, trade, and Shudra were assigned with the job of serving all the other three Varnas. Now what did they do in their leisure time? So the Aryans enjoyed outdoor games along with the indoor games. Men and women used to take part in music, singing and dancing. By the way, these leisure activities of early Vedic period are going to be replaced by hunting, racing in the later Vedic period. We will come to know about this in the later part of this lecture. Now coming to the economic life, so agriculture was the main profession. Agriculture had become an important profession for the Rig Vedic Aryans. Rig Vedic Aryan means early Vedic Aryans, because Rig Veda was compiled during the early Vedic period, which is between 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. And now from 1000 BCE to 500 BCE, it is later Vedic period. Okay, so this is later Vedic period, and this is early Vedic period, or what we call it as Rig Vedic period, because Rig Veda was compiled in this period, and other three Vedas were compiled in this period. Now, animal domestication. So the early Vedic Aryans were more used to domestication of animal, and cow was considered very precious. That many of the battles in the Rig Vedic period were centered around the authority over cows. So this was the importance of cow. Now coming to the craft, weaving was a common occupation for both men as well as women. Both used to participate in the textile production. Now coming to the trade, so we heard of inland trade specifically in the areas of textile and leather goods, but recent researchers have also verified that there was some kind of sea trade or oceanic trade also. So barter system was the helpful practice in trading. The coinage was developed in later Vedic period, not in the early Vedic period. In the early Vedic period, trade was conducted on the basis of barter system only. Now coming to the religious life, so there were nature gods like Agni, Prithvi, who was considered to be the goddess of earth, Indra, who was considered to be the god of rain, thunder, and war, Varun, who was considered to be the god of water. So these were considered as nature gods, and Rig Vedic Aryans followed a simple religion, worshipped the various forces of nature, but they also believed in supreme God, oneness of God. The early Aryans believed that the various gods and goddesses of nature were the expression of one supreme being. So we can say that to a certain extent they were also monotheistic and believed in the oneness of God. So they considered that all these gods, whether it is Prithvi, Indra, Agni or Varun, they all are the expression of one supreme being or the creator of universe. In the early Vedic period, their main focus was on prayers, and they also used to do sacrifices, but sacrifices were not that much important as compared to prayers. So the Rig Vedic Aryans worshipped their god and goddesses by chanting hymns, by chanting prayers, and offering simple sacrifices. Sacrifices were not only very simple, but also it was not as much as important as compared to the prayers.
So now we will look at the later Vedic age. How was the social life in the later Vedic age? So, the food habits, dressing style, and leisure habits. In the later Vedic village, nothing changed in terms of food habits, dressing styles, or leisure activities. Racing, hunting, and dicing were some popular games of this time. Varna system. The Varna system became very dominant in the later Vedic period. The caste system became hereditary. Earlier, it was not considered as to the son of the Brahman will be the Brahman or the son of the Shudras will be Shudras. But in this period, in the later Vedic period, it became hereditary and the Varna system was very much dominant. The entire life of a man was divided into 4 ashrams. The first ashram was the Brahmacharya till the age of 25. It was considered as the student life. Next was the Grihastha ashram, which started from 26 to 56 years, in which a man is supposed to get married and lead a family life. From the age of 51 to 75 years, Aryans led a life of prayers and meditation in sannyas ashrams. Next was the family and the housing. Family remained the same as before. The women folks. In the later Vedic period, the women folks lost their equality with men. Earlier, women were equal to men in all the positions. But in the later Vedic period, women were not allowed to study, they were not allowed to perform certain types of prayers, yagyas, etc. The Gurukul system came into the play. In the later Vedic period, students lived with their gurus in the ashrams. After the completion of their academic development, they used to give the donation which was known as Guru Dakshina. Next, we will talk about the economic life in the later Vedic period. In the economic life, the agriculture became the main source of income. The people usually grew 2 crops together, which was wheat and rice. Domesticated animals. Rearing of cattle was profitable even in the later Vedic period. The value of goods was referred by the number of cows. Crafts. The new crafts developed in the later Vedic period. Trade continued to flourish. Nishika began to be used as the coin, as did Santa Mana and Krishnamana. So now the coinage system has begun in the later Vedic period. Cities. The kingdoms had capital cities. Example, Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura, Indraprasth, Hastinapur, etc. The religious life. The new god and goddesses came in the being in the later Vedic period, such as the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Ram, Krishna, Durga, Kali, Parvati, and Lakshmi took their places. The sacrifice and rituals. New ceremonies and rituals were added, and the sacrifice became lengthy and complicated in this period. The importance of priest increased in this period. Magic charms and spells. Aryan man started believing in the witchcraft, magic spell, and the charms. The Upanishads. The Aryan of the later Vedic times believed in the philosophical doctrines of Maya, Karma, Moksha, and Mukti. So, this was it in this video. We will continue in the next lecture. Thank you.